What's up, Links and Lines? Welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. In this one, we're excited to switch it up and talk a little bit about some content that's meaningful to us. So we're going to talk about breaking down myths of the black male image. And this is something that's important to us because obviously as black men, we go through this really our entire lives. Like we've always felt like there's these stereotypes out there for black men and women. But specifically in this one, we're going to break down some things that AG and I both have seen, noticed as black men regarding that with our image. So I'm going to let him kick it off.
So the first one I got is the whole having to be an athlete or entertainer stigma. I feel like that is something since a kid, a lot of us who grew up in the inner city or even in the suburbs or just you grew up in modern time entertainment, it's drawn to us to be athletes or entertainers as the fastest way and only way to get, big money or recognition or things like that. And I feel like growing up, I was a 3-sport athlete. I was a class clown. I was all of those things. So I'm really speaking from that angle. I felt like when I was in school, I can be funny and that's fine, but I felt like I kind of had to be the class clown in some instances because I wasn't the smartest in the room or I wasn't the most talented in the classroom. Even though when I apply myself, I learned older applying myself, I can be those things, but in like middle school and high school and stuff, when you're just figuring yourself out, I mainly was just focused on sports. And when I realized I'm not going to the league of no kind, you know what I'm saying? I'm okay. Now what can I do? I gotta entertain instead of focusing on what we really talk about, a skill. You know what I'm saying? I had to get to that point. I think that our culture too, nobody's perfect. Nobody's parents is perfect, but sometimes parents might live vicariously through their kids, or let's say you got a pops that was all state, you know what I'm saying? Or think about being like a major athlete's son or daughter, like you got to fill in those certain shoes. I get it for their perspective, but for everybody that's living, growing up, especially of color, those are like the main pathways that they say we can be. Like I was saying, I did stay ready with the jokes and stuff like that. It does like benefit me, but at the same time, there's more to life than just being athletic and funny. I feel like those are important, but it's more to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So piggybacking off that, I also have like the collegiate athletic experience. So we both have really lived that actual life. We're not just saying that from outside looking in. But I think another problem is in the hood or like urban environments, I feel like we celebrate primal stuff like how strong are you? How fast are you? Can you outrun people on the block? How good are you at sports? And if you can't do any of that, you better be able to fight. And if you can't do any of that, you better be funny. Like to your point, you better be funny. Like, because if not, it's over for you. You're gonna get ran out the hood. Like, so I don't know. And it's also, I feel like a myth that we have in our culture, like you said, that those are the only ways to really get money or really get anywhere. Like I know that I view football as an exit. Like I'm from Detroit, so I knew there was no way I was gonna pay for college or be able to afford college without that scholarship. And so you dedicate the majority of like your time towards that. And it and the bad part is it works. Like that is how a lot of us do and have gone to college. Like are through sports. Like that is the access. So it's almost like it is. I hate it now looking back on it. There's so many young kids today probably still have that same perception that they have to play sports and do this and do that to be successful or to make money. But I can also understand why it exists, because people tell you to go to college and do all this, but when college is $50,000 a semester and all this crazy, it's like there's only a handful of sports too that will give you a full scholarship. So really that kind of limits you to basketball, football. You're not gonna get a full ride in track usually. Swimming, other sports like baseball. It's not the same because it's all based on the revenue the sport brings into the school. So there's a lot of reasons. It gets very complicated why we kind of fall into those buckets. It's usually basketball and football for black men. and why we pursue that like so much. So I agree with that. That's a big one. My first one was gonna be, I feel like I'm always overcoming the thug image that the media portrays of a black man. So, you know, whether that's just pants sagging, being unmotivated, being unable to speak English, uneducated, selling drugs, prison bids, gang banging, all of these things, rap music, you know what I mean? Like all of these things that just automatically get associated with black people, but specifically black men. And that just really bothers me a lot. Like I feel like you want to chime. I'm gonna let you go ahead and chime in on that one.
Yeah, I mean the whole image, being somebody that's in the music industry as well, the thug image sells. However, these labels don't even want to deal with the real thug image, but being able to work your day job and then you go in the booth, it's kind of like when Gilly the Kid was coming at Rick Ross. He was like, because Rick Ross was a correctional officer. But at night, he would go rap, and he would go in the booth, and he would be a kingpin, as we know, Ricky Ross. So Gilly was exposing that, but that's what we're talking about is some people really live that life. So what we're talking about are the myths that all of us have to be like that, or all of us have to hoop, or all of us have to play basketball, black men. That's where I'm saying, like, you could be from a rough neighborhood. You from the west side of Detroit, bro. You from Joy Road. You from around the way. So, but you don't look like what some. If you were to look at a music video right now that was shot on the west side, 7 Mile, you do not look like who would be in that video, even though your crib is right down the street from the Murder Mac. So it's one of those situations where when you're really from it, you trying to get out of it. And when you're not from it, you're trying to get in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where it gets gray. Cause I feel like the thug image is something that's been happening since the 90s. And I feel like it was heavily incorporated through the music. So now people in music have to be that or they won't sell.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which it's like it's something we're trying to get out of it, but it's being sold right back to us. Because we could probably name 5 of our favorite rap songs right now, and them bitches are they cut that. We can name 5 of our favorite rap songs right now, and they're probably heavily. They you know what it is. It's
violence.
It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, all type of stuff.
So that's like a catch-22, cause we listen to that music in the weight room, or we whatever. So we know that that's conditioning us to carry ourselves that way too long term. But you've become more diverse and you got more stuff going on, and it reflects in how you carry yourself. It reflects on how I carry myself.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that narrative is pushed on us, but we don't necessarily have to. It's okay if you're not from around the way. It's okay if you're not hard. It's okay. There are plenty of other roles to be filled. So that's one of the myths that we were trying to break.
Yeah, and I think people want to reinforce what they think they know about black people or black culture. And if a lot of that isn't from firsthand experiences, like if you don't have black friends and people that you're actually close with, not just coworkers and things like that, I feel like and also a range, because black people aren't the same. We're not a monolithic group of people that all do the same thing. So it's like
the media makes it.
The media makes it all seem like we are a monolithic group of people. And I think people don't know how to interact with black people if they don't have their own experiences with them. And so you want to think that, doing these hand gestures or saying certain things, I'm going to think that they're cool, or talking to me a certain way is going to, you know what I mean? Make me like you more, make you, I don't know, make us cool. I don't know. But again, it's like even when people do understand that maybe you aren't this thug or this whatever, I feel like they all think that that's somewhere in you. They think that it's very weird, but it's almost impossible to escape people thinking that you're some brute thug or just whatever, especially when they don't know you. So if you're just walking down the street, if you saw this man dressed like this or saw me dressed like this, and you didn't know anything about us, like we get stereotyped all the time. And then when we open our mouths and people talk to us, we have a completely different experience. But again, I think that's because there's already this pre-existing image of a black man, and he's violent, he's a criminal, and he's all these other things, and therefore so are the rest of us. And that's a huge like issue that I have. So I'm gonna let AG go with his next one.
My next myth is the whole talking white thing. I like to call it code switching. I feel like that's a skill. It's not something that's detrimental to the black man. It just has a negative name. Talking white isn't even a real thing unless you're actually trying to impersonate a white person and you're trying to be funny or whatever, right? Speaking professional and articulating and properly communicating is a skill. I feel like our Ebonics is its own language, and most people might disagree, but if you grew up in a certain area, but you went to school in, like, let's say you grew up in the inner city, but you went to school in the suburbs, you got the best of both worlds. So when you in the city, you're going to talk differently to your people in the city.
Naturally, yeah.
When you go out to the suburbs, you're going to speak differently to them suburban folks. That's being bilingual. Ebonics is what makes up pretty much all the music right now, all the catchy phrases and all that's Ebonics. That comes from our culture. That comes from how we communicate with each other. But we have to learn how to differentiate when it's time to speak Ebonics. You got to just have your switch. You got to know when to turn it. Like I said, code switch. You got to turn it on and off. When it's time to be in a professional setting, having those proper skills, that's where you thrive. That's when it's time to shine. When you behind closed doors or kicking it with your homies or whatever you got going on, that's when you can be relaxed. And you know, y'all have your own language. Every group of friends has their own way of speaking to each other anyway. So that's something that I feel is very, very frowned upon. Like when you carry yourself a certain way and you speak a certain way, that your own peers of color are looking at you like, why are you talking like that? Or why are you texting like that? Or why are you emailing like that? That's important to have. If you have that skill, don't lose it. If you don't have it, sharpen it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt like, unfortunately, like black culture doesn't really value education. Like it's not something we really hold on a high level.
Yeah, we go to school to play sports. Like
Exactly, and we normalize a lot of improper things, and like we speak English. We live in an English speaking country, so I don't understand like why. I've never understood why people had a problem with. I never understood this. This has always confused the hell out of me when it comes to black people. Like honestly, it really has, because this is why we stay poor, or one of the major reasons why we stay poor. You know what I mean? Is like you live in a capitalist society where you have to communicate with other people using English. The less you're able to communicate effectively with other people, the less they'll be able to understand you or work with you or partner with you or do anything. Or they'll take advantage of you because they know that your education level isn't there to understand what they're saying to you. So it's like, I mean, it's just another way that I feel like we kind of victimize ourselves and kind of keep ourselves in a certain mentality by just making this excuse that, oh, those people over there are acting white or whatever, when in reality we live in a society that speaks English, and this is the way that we operate. So you don't have to do it. You can pick and choose what worlds you want to be in, but I just understand you will be limited. You will be limited to certain people, certain opportunities and things like that. So it's just trade-offs. Instead of labeling and pointing the finger and saying somebody's doing this and they're doing that, like you got to just think about the trade-offs that maybe you're making and the trade-offs that they're making. It's just, that's all it is. So I agree with you on that one. A big one for me is the absent father stigma, that black men do not take care of their kids and we just abandon our kids. I don't have kids, by the way. AG does not have kids, by the way. But both of us, I mean, we're in a single mother households, like raised in single parent households. And so we do understand that stigma. Like, and I'm not saying that it's not real. And I think there's something like, don't quote me, somebody's gonna probably try to kill me in the comments, like something like 75% of black women are single mothers, like that have kids, which is really crazy. That's a really, really crazy number. Totally separate episode and conversation about like maybe like all the knock-on effects that kind of led to that. But, you know, to label all, again, it's the same thing we're saying earlier, to label all black men that way. Because like, I'll let AG share his own experiences like with your stepdad, but for me, you know, in the last few years, I've actually had a almost like a pseudo dad, because I don't even want to call him a stepdad, but he's a mentor. He's a black man. He's older. He's in his 60s. And we met years ago. So I've known him for like close to a decade now. Right. But ever since I met him, that man has consistently stayed in my life. Right. Like just keep up with what I'm doing, even if it's just like every 6 months, a couple times a year. Like whenever he's in town, I make sure that we go get something to eat and just catch up and whatever. It's little simple things. He doesn't give me money. He doesn't, you know, whatever. He listens to me about certain things. He'll give me perspective from his experience in life, things like that. And, you know, he does all that. He doesn't get paid for that. He doesn't get anything from that. It's like he just sees me as a younger man and he wants to help just check in on my mind and my thinking, make sure I'm, you know what I mean, reflecting properly on certain decisions that I'm making and things like that, help me avoid certain mistakes that maybe he made. To me, that man's a father. Like, he's like a father to me. You know what I mean? Like, and it's great. He's not my real dad. He's not my stepdad. He doesn't even know who my mother is. But that's a black man that doesn't have to do that. He has kids of his own, everything. You know what I mean? And we don't talk about that. Like, those men don't. I'm not saying what he does or doesn't do for his kids, because I don't know his kids, never met them, I don't know. But if he's willing to do that for me, I can only imagine the time and investment he's put in with his kids and his family. So I'm just saying there are lots of black men out here that do go the extra mile to not be this stigma, but they don't get celebrated. They don't get shown. They don't get talked about. And I have a lot of friends who have kids and are great dads. Like, they're single dads and they're great dads, and they're there for their children in every way possible, not missing a beat. So I just feel like it's crazy that, you know, every society has this, including Elon Musk having like 9 kids, and we're not comparing him to Future by any means. I'm not saying that Elon is not taking care of his kids, but he had like 9 kids by different women, out of wedlock, whatever the situation is, and not all of them, obviously. But my point is just that the stereotype overwhelmingly is on black men. Even though there are men of other cultures that do this exact same thing, we get looked at as if you have a child by a black man, he's more than likely not going to be anything in terms of fatherhood or any of that. So if you want to chime in on that one.
Yeah, my thing with that is our women are being forced to be independent in a way that's having them think, okay, I don't need a man.
Yeah.
Now, in my case, you know, I didn't grow up with my dad, right, but I had my stepdad. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He stepped up, he looked out. So I respect him for that. But I also put myself in a stepfather's role. Mm-hmm. You're coming into a situation where a woman has had a child with this man, and now you want to be with that woman, mm-hmm, so you're going to take care of that child as a part of being with that woman. Mm-hmm. The stigma is, like, black men are always supposed to just step up, even if the kid isn't yours, mm-hmm, per se. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's a double-edged sword to me, because you can just strictly want to be with that woman, but she comes with that kid. So if you're gonna be with the woman, you're gonna take care of the kid. There's just no way around it. Nope. But in my case, me and my stepdad, we work stuff out. In other people's cases, they might not get along with their step parent. I showed my stepdad respect. You feel me? So, not too many people that I know that have step parents, they don't even like their step parents.
No, I can understand.
So you're also creating a hostile environment, which is where kids are seeing step parents with their biological parent getting into arguments. That's the instability. They get in an argument, they break up, they divorce, or one of the person's tactics is leaving the house for long periods of time. That is getting pushed back on the kids. So when these myths surface, it's like a cycle that's been going for a while. Removing the father from our home has been done since slavery and beyond.
Absolutely.
We know that. So in order for us to beat that, we gotta just have some kids and stay with your kids. And even if you don't get along with the mom, we have to be able to separate as peacefully as possible. And I know that's way easier said than done because everybody's situation is different. I'm just saying that's the only way I see it actually changing. But and also, like, when a lot of black men hit success, we can bring up 10 successful black men right now, and I would probably say at least 4 out of 10 or maybe even 5 out of 10 of them aren't even necessarily married or dating a black woman. That's also like something that's happened over time as far as when you hit success, then you tapping into different. I mean, you also are probably opened up to different cultures and stuff when you start traveling the world and stuff like that, but it's not that black men don't like black women. That's the thing that I want. That's the narrative that I really want to stop hearing. If you like different cultures, you like different cultures. But you don't have to be like, oh, I don't like black women, woo, 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 when you've only had experience with one kind of black woman. If you from the inner city and you only dealt with inner city women, you can't say that a black woman from Jamaica, Queens, or something like that, a whole different place, isn't gonna treat you right. You only have experience with this type. You know what I'm saying? So, and the same thing with the men too. Like, some of y'all women only have experience with men in environments that you haven't gotten out of. So now you looking at all men, like, or all black men, like, oh yeah, he ain't this and he ain't that. When you haven't even put yourself in position to be, you haven't done the work on yourself, both sides, to be able to make it shake. So I feel like the whole, step parent and not having a father and stuff like that, it's real, but it can change.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I agree. Yeah, my last one in terms of a myth for black men is that it kind of aligns with the thug one, but is that we're viewed as hostile or violent, or angry, loud, all that stuff, and it's funny because some things I think could just be culture differences. Truthfully, like, I think that working in corporate America, I can say that I think none of us are disagreeing that corporate communication is very different from urban communication, let's say. So there are some things that I think would be classified by other groups of people as loud, aggressive, threatening, whatever. It could be taken that way, but amongst your own, it's not seen that way at all. And one thing I never liked, so when I was in 7th grade, I went to this school that I was like one of the only black boys in the entire school, and the principal told me, he's walking me through the school, and he's like, you're gonna have to be a gentle giant here. And I remember thinking to myself, like, bro, I'm like 5'8", 5'9", like, I'm not the tallest dude in the school. I'm not the biggest dude in the school. This is a grown man telling me this. I was in 7th grade, and I think back on that as an adult now. So you were threatened by a 7th grader? Like, not saying he was threatened per se, but you really felt like the student population was in danger because I am now attending the school. What am I gonna do? Just start go hawk and just blast everybody in the lockers, just be everybody go crazy. Like, but that is like, I don't want to say the power, but that is the image that they think that is the image they have of us. Like, they think that if I get upset, I like they can't control me and I'm gonna be so like, yo, it's like it's I mean, it's so crazy. It's crazy to think, but I mean, it really is. You got to think back to like almost like King Kong, bro. Like, I almost feel like they look at black men like we are these huge ape gorillas that are just like, how can you control us? How can you do anything if we ever decide to just lose it? Like, how are you gonna contain our strength and just everything? Like, we're just gonna rip the ceiling off, bro. Like, I just I don't understand that. And it's so frustrating because I like to communicate. I like to use my words. I like to talk and relate with people and things like that. But they want me to be violent. They want to see me as violent. They want to see me as somebody that wants to. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I don't understand it. But I just know that it's a huge problem that black men and women go through. Black women get viewed as aggressive all the time and loud all the time and outspoken in a negative way and like all these things all the time. And like I said, I think there's just cultural communication differences that get misinterpreted and misconstrued by other cultures, including like I'm saying corporate culture. Like, I don't even want to limit it to like any particular race, but in a capitalist society, I think the reason why we see this image pushed in the media is because corporations, for whatever reason, for whatever reasons they have, want to label or portray black people to be a certain way. And I just think that violence and hostility happens to be like one of those traits.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Being loud is something that I've had women tell me that they like my loudness, but then I also have women tell me that they don't like my loudness. It all depends on what type of loud I'm being. But I will say that most black men that I know that we play sports together or we cool or we've been through something together are naturally, like, we could have a group of people here and on the outside looking in, they might thinking we're yelling at each other and we tripping, but we really just having a real good time, real conversation. It's like we got powerful voices, you know what I'm saying? So or you know, bass in it or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean like it's a bad thing happening.
You're not in an argument. No.
Yeah, so that's also like a something that is just within us, and if you are going to get to know the culture, then just know how it is. If you got questions, just ask somebody. That's how I feel. Like, hey, are you guys all right? You know, like I've had some of my white friends. Literally, we be hanging out and we'll be chilling, and it'd be a mixed group of people, and we're all, you know, we having a conversation over here, and it gets loud. And right. Bro, y'all good? Whatever was going on, but it's not that.
It's not like that.
So my last point, a myth that I grew up under, because I had my grandma as well. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, great-grandparents, and my grandparents. So I was around a lot of old school folks. And they used to tell me when I was younger that I used to want the AI braids. I used to want the Wayne locks. You know what I'm saying? I used to want to let it flow. But I always had to keep a fade. Always had to keep a low cut. I had to always keep a clean image. Like, personally, I love tattoos, but I don't have any tattoos. My grandma instilled in me that if I were to get when I was younger, she was like, if you get tattoos, you're going to get keloids. You know what keloids are? Like, the keloids are it's like the...
grows, like a growth, right?
Well, it's not a growth. It's like it would look like a nasty, like, razor bump. Like, it'd just be a whole bunch of bumps. Ooh. And it would be abrased. So, or like you see people get keloids. When they get on the skin, it's going to be abrased, but like behind the ear, like it'd be a fat ball of like skin tissue. So I'm like, she definitely got through to me on that one. I never did it, and I didn't get my ears pierced till like college. And even then, I don't even wear earrings no more for real. But not getting tattoos was just so like, if you get tattoos, you won't get a job out here. You won't get